So this was in Haryana, and this was at the peak of the emergency. A father and son, both were journalists, Debendra Vasisht and Rabindra Vasisht. So they were running a very small local kind of a newspaper, and Bansilal was the chief minister of Haryana back then. Horrible man. Horrible is an understatement. He ran the state like a mafia, basically. And this is a man, whom Indira Gandhi also feared in many ways, because he made a famous statement. When a journalist asks Bansilal, aren't you afraid of Indira Gandhi's displeasure and things like that? बछड़े को मैंने अपने हाथ में कर लिया, गौ माता अपने आप आ जाएगी. You get the allusion?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
The bachada, the calf, Sanjay Gandhi is in my hands.
Understood.
So the gau mata will automatically follow whatever I say.
He knew how to play his cards.
He knew how to play his cards.
Yeah, but very notorious. Right?
Very notorious. So that in his regime, this Devendra Vasisht and his son, Rabindra was a father, or Devendra was a father, I forget the exact this thing. Anyway, so they kept writing against the misdeeds of both Bansilal and the central government, obviously Indira Gandhi's government. And then, they were given several warnings, and they did the real journalism of courage in that sense. Finally, things came to a head, and they were running a very, very small operation. I mean, the circulation was hardly in a few thousands. It was a local paper in Hindi. Then one day, what happened was, the power was cut off to their office and their home. And when the father, very elderly man, about 70, 72, he was returning to his home on his scooter, some goons of Bansilal, they waylaid him, beat him with rods and iron chains, left him, bleeding to die. And then, when he did not, it was quite late and this man had not returned. So his family members also came out, and then they were informed by some of their neighbors that, he's lying there. And when they took them to the hospital staff refused to admit him for treatment.
Because of the fear of Bansilal.
Because of the fear of Bansilal. Hospitals refused to admit Devendra Vasisht, and they had to run from pillar to post, and finally somehow his life was saved. But he was pretty much became a vegetable for the rest of his life. His family was harassed. Gundas shadowing your family members wherever you go. Things that you see in movies. I mean, that it is fiction when you're watching a film. Ultimately, it's fiction, right? But still it hits you. Imagine this happening to you or somebody near to you in your neighborhood, to your own family. Imagine undergoing that pain, that harassment.
And a strong man who ran the state with an iron fist was so rattled by a small family running a small
somewhere, in some random town with hardly any road access. So this used to be pretty much the case in emergency. There are, of course, hundreds, if not thousands of such cases of, muzzling media freedom, killing and torturing and imprisoning journalists, things like that. And don't think for a moment that all journalists who were targeted or tortured or imprisoned by government, false charges slapped on them, don't think all of them were paragons of honesty and integrity. It was a dictatorship. It is a free for all. It doesn't matter. I'm Sanjay Gandhi. I wake up this morning. I look outside my window. I don't like the face of some guy I see on the road, and he accidentally happens to be a journalist. He'll be picked up.
And the irony when Congress talks about the lack of FOE and the journalist who talks so freely without any cost being imposed on them.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So, since you brought up the emergency episode, I think that's a good way to segue into what led to all this. Remember that Advani was he started his career as a journalist. Not too many people know this. He had a solid grasp of events, and his analysis was in those days. If you read his older writings, they are spot on. He gave us the famous quote about media. When the media was asked merely to bend, it crawled.
I vividly remember. Yeah.
Right. So it has become a punchline, a kind of, catchphrase, a slogan for at least 2.5 generations. Now, why did the media crawl when it was asked to bend? This is what Advani's, he leaves it unsaid, but we can, piece things together. The media crawled because it had already lost its spine by 1975 emergency. And what is the journey that led to that? And like I said in the last episode, all roads lead to
Congress. Nawab Nehru.
All roads lead to Nawab Nehru. Now, one of the first things that Nawab Nehru did after he became, supreme leader was to call a bunch of newspaper editors and owners and journalists for a meeting. And he basically told them that, look, you're doing great service for freedom of expression and, the rest of the nice things, service to society, this, that, and other. And he said, I want to support you. So I am allotting you land so that you can build your newspaper offices. There's one entire street in Delhi which is lined on either side of the road with newspaper offices. Some of these offices are as old as the time they have been built.
Land allotment
laws, even some of those have not even been repainted. Nehru gave them all that land.
So this is a very nice, smart, tactical, tacit move.
Yeah.
Long-term
vision. Now, you have I'll take a random name. Varghese. Okay. He writes his autobiography as if it is, something to be proud of. And he went on a government-sponsored trip to view the building of the Hirakud Dam. It is still one of the largest dams in India. So the Nehru government sponsored this trip to report on it. What do you mean report on it? What do you mean report on it, boss?
Paid journalism.
All right. So that way he co-opted so many of these people, and it worked in two ways. One thing is the praise of Nawab Nehru and his government. The other thing is to act as a bloodhound, a trained bloodhound, to go after critics of Nawab Nehru. Sitaram Goel, for example, was one of the eminent victims of such journalism. So when he began to write about the dangers of Nehru's patronage to communists from China, from USSR, from communists, homegrown communists, and he warned about the long-term, fatal consequences of communist patronage, this man, this journalist, his name is some Bedi or some Puri, Punjabi basically. He ran a slander campaign against Sitaram Goel and, warned him in black and white, in print, saying that this kind of slander against the Nehru government will not be tolerated. And such journalists might have to face serious consequences. So you do this. Let's take the cutoff starting date as 1951. Nehru, when he won the first general elections. And the cutoff date, the end date as the emergency. So 1950, 25 years. You do this for 25 years, serving the Nehru clan. And where is your spine to stand? You were already bent, boss.
So the only
option is to crawl.